In all your ways, acknowledge him. You know why? Because there are going to be some times when you just don't get it. You don't understand why you are where you are. You sure don't know how to get yourself out of it because you don't even know how you got here. And especially when it's things that happen to you and you weren't the cause of them, then you're really confused.
Hello and welcome to this Friday edition of Destined for Victory with Pastor Paul Sheppard, Senior Pastor of Destiny Christian Fellowship in Fremont, California. Well, Pastor Paul has a question for you today. Do you acknowledge God in all of your ways? Do you invite him into all of your life? Or do you only call on him when times get tough or when you're facing a crisis? Today's message will encourage you to welcome him into every area of your life. If your busy holiday schedule has you short on time, be sure to visit pastorpaul.net to hear any recent Destined for Victory message on demand. That's our newly updated and improved website, pastorpaul.net. Now, with today's Destined for Victory message, inviting Jesus into everything, here is Pastor Paul.
When Jesus comes in, he takes you just as you are, but the only way you'll be transformed is if he's president. He's got to have the reins. In fact, we use president just because we live in a democracy. Let me be honest with you. Let's be technical and say he's really not president because presidents get elected. When you are born, there's a king of the kingdom where you live. And he was king from day one. And you got to understand, he's the King of Kings. He's the Lord of Lords. You got to learn to give him everything. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not to your own understanding. And then watch this one in verse 6. And in all your ways, acknowledge him. He'll direct your path. You need him in your decision making, in all of your ways. In all of your ways, acknowledge him. Here's what I'm thinking, Lord. Here's the way I see something happening, but I need your word on this. What do you want in this area of my life? In all your ways, acknowledge him. You know why? Because there are going to be some times when you just don't get it. You don't understand why you are where you are. You sure don't know how to get yourself out of it because you don't even know how you got here. And especially when it's things that happen to you and you weren't the cause of them, then you're really confused. So you got to understand this. Remember those girls later on in this same gospel, John chapter 11, Jesus has three special friends, Mary, Martha, and Lazarus. They were not only followers, they were friends of Jesus. In fact, Lazarus is such a close friend of Jesus that he gets sick in John chapter 11. Says he becomes sick and the girls aren't even upset. You know why? Because their best friend is a healer. How you going to get really worried when your best friend, that's what he does, is heals people. So when Lazarus got sick, the girl said, no problem, told somebody, go get Jesus, tell him the one you love is sick. Man, that's close. When they don't even have to call somebody's name, somebody come up to you and say, hey, your boy is sick. And you know who they're talking about? That's close. You sisters, your girl's sick. That's close. That's what they sent word. Tell Jesus the one he loves is sick. And they're not even worried. I found out something though about Jesus. He has a way in order to take you deeper in understanding how he goes from the mundane to the miraculous. You have to go into deeper mess. See, we all want to get deep in a certain way, but sometimes when it comes to relationship, when it comes to intimacy with God, when it comes to exercise of gifts or whatever it is, sometimes that doesn't happen until your trouble, your drama goes deep. So when they see their brother sick, they say, well, no problem. Jesus is going to take care of this. Go find Jesus. What they don't know, but God knew, which is why Jesus was away from them. God knew he wanted to take them to a level they wouldn't get if he were nearby and just could simply come and heal Lazarus. If I heal him, they'll say just a day at the job for Jesus. So they send for him. Jesus is a day's journey away. Have you ever had drama show up and you sin for Jesus and you discover that he is nowhere near? That's what they did. They found out the hard way because they didn't know. It's not like they had cell phones. Not like they're texting, not like the person they sent can text them back. Well, I just found out that he's a day's journey away. None of that. They're flying blind. All they know is they've sent somebody to go get Jesus. They assume he's nearby. These people live in Bethany, by the way, which is a 2-mile walk from Jerusalem. So they figure, well, if he's in Jerusalem, okay, couple miles, servant will find him, couple miles back in here, no problem. They don't know he's not in Jerusalem. He is a full day's journey away. And so the guy they sent finds out where he is, goes there. What we know from the timeline in John 11 is that shortly after the guy left, he probably got too far away for them to run down the road and catch him. Lazarus died that day. The guy's still going to find him. Lazarus just died. I came to tell you something. The reason why you have to learn how to give God everything is because some things happen that are way outside of our control. And we tend to panic. But that's only because you had no business thinking your control had anything to do with it in the first place. But imagine them saying, oh my goodness, he's dead. Jesus didn't get here. Jesus is a day's journey away and they have no idea. Imagine how they feel. Oh, why? Because they know him as a healer. They don't get this resurrection stuff. They are so familiar with him stopping a crisis while it's still in progress. And between that and their grief, their disillusionment, all that's, imagine how they felt later that day. We sent the guy to go find him. It's too late, he's dead. Guy finds him next day. Tells him, your boy, the one you love, is sick. Jesus said, now what we don't know is whether he said these words while the servant was still there or if the servant left before he said the words. We don't know. So let me give you both scenarios. Suppose the servant stayed there to get a response and he heard Jesus tell the disciples, this sickness isn't unto death. This sickness is for God's glory. Not unto death, for the glory of God. So let's say he heard that, gets back, which is another day's journey, walks in the house. Sisters are looking behind him. Where's Jesus? He's supposed to be right behind you. Where's Jesus? He didn't come with me. What? What did he say? Scenario one. Let's suppose the servant was there when he responded. Imagine this servant. Well, he said, that this sickness isn't unto death. It's for God's glory. Lazarus has already been transferred from the house to the tomb. This sickness isn't unto death. He's at the graveyard. Scenario two. Suppose the servant left before Jesus spoke to the disciples. Servant gets back. They look around. Jesus said, where's Jesus? I don't know. Well, what'd he say? Nothing. Do you see, either way, they now have never been as confused as they are. We wanted him healed. He's dead. We wanted Jesus to come right away. He was a day's journey, we're just finding out. So it took the servant 2 days to get back to us, only to tell us Jesus didn't say anything. That's why you got to learn to walk by faith. Because sight doesn't make a lot of sense often. And some of you right now are dealing with the worst, the most challenging, difficulty you have had and you don't understand why God has allowed it. And what you're going to learn as you read John 11 is not only did he allow it, he willed it. Why? Because in order for him to show you another level of how miraculous he is, you have to deal with something you've never seen him have to do before. So Lazarus was sick, but he wasn't sick enough to get healed. He had to get sick enough to die. Then you find out when Jesus gives this word, sends the servant back, he stays where he is, which is day 2, an additional day. Day 3, still there. Why? Your best friend, you heard he's sick. Jesus already knows he's not only sick, he's dead. And I'm still staying here. Imagine if your best friend hears this horrible news and says, all right, thanks for letting me know. You're going to have a problem. Jesus doesn't go until the 4th day. He arrives on the 4th day. Why is he arriving on the 4th day? Because he knows that the Jewish mindset is that the spirit hangs around the body for up to 3 days. So if there's any chance of a person being revived or something, even the most mystical of the Jews would say, well, that's technically possible within 3 days. Even the mystics among them. Could happen. Don't expect it to, but could happen within 3 days. Jesus said, fine, I'll fix your red wagon. I'm going to show up on the 4th day when nobody thinks there's anything that can be done.
Don't go away. The second half of Pastor Paul Sheppard's message is coming right up. If you haven't yet taken the opportunity to visit our brand new website, I encourage you to do so today. The address is the same, pastorpaul.net, and that's where you can access any recent Destined for Victory message on demand. pastorpaul.net. There you'll also find a host of great resources at our online store. Well, at first, Lazarus needed healing, but by the time Jesus showed up, he needed a resurrection. If you've ever waited on God for a miracle and wondered why he didn't come right away, you'll find out next in the rest of today's message, Inviting Jesus into Everything. Once again, here's Pastor Paul Sheppard.
4th day is really it. That's when he comes walking down the road. You know how it goes. Somebody sees him, and you know the people in your life, they love to be masters of the obvious. Here comes Jesus. He ain't even running. He walking. Martha gets up, runs out of the house, meets him outside. Master, if you had been here, he wouldn't have died. You know what? She's right. When you look at his years of earthly ministry, no one in those 3 years of earthly active ministry, no one died in his presence. If you were going to die, you had to die before he came, or you died after he was gone. You didn't die in his presence. So she was right. If you had been here, it wouldn't have happened. That's why he stayed away. He needed y'all to see what he can do. You already knew he was a healer. Now you need to see him as something else. And so Jesus said, you're going to see him again. I told you he gives little tests of faith. She said, I know we'll see him again in the resurrection. He said, I am the resurrection. You are talking about the resurrection to the resurrection. You don't know it, but that's why I stayed away, so you could find out that the resurrection is not an event. The resurrection is a person. I am the resurrection and the life. Whoever believes in me, though he is dead, yet shall he live. Whoever lives and believes in me shall never die. That's why he stayed away. So Martha's out there, so she hears it. She just doesn't get it yet. He says, I'm about to do something, but I am not going to do it just with you. Go get your sister. Martha runs back to the house. Jesus calling for you. I love this. Mary stayed in the house at first, quite intentionally. She wasn't waiting to be invaded. She didn't even want to invite him. I invited him 4 days ago. Come on, some of y'all. There you go, looking pious and holy. Y'all know what it's like. Okay, not you, but somebody on your row knows what it's like to have an attitude with God. I know that doesn't sound spiritual. Most folk don't want to admit they've ever been mad at God. Some people are spooky and superstitious and think you'll get struck with lightning bolts. Get all that out of it. If the Lord was after us, do you know he wouldn't wait for you to say something stupid? If he's gunning for you, bam, you out of there. But some of y'all know what it's like to have an attitude with God. And I'm sure, text doesn't say it, but the fact that she stayed in the house while her sister ran out tells me and tells all of us who know peopleology that she could have very well been sitting in there talking about, no, he didn't. Come down the street 4 days later. Now, my brother's his best friend. And he takes his precious time. He's not even running down the road. Y'all know what that's like, whether you want to admit it or not. You know what it's like to say, God, I don't get it. The tithers say, I definitely don't get it. I give my tithes and offerings. Y'all start recounting your little spiritual activity. I pray, I help out with the church. And you don't get it. Why would he do me like this? I don't get that. I wouldn't do that to people. Now, why would he do that to me? So he might be calling for me. Could be her mindset, but he don't want to see me right now. Come. See, there y'all go. He think he want to see me. I'm going to do him a favor, stay in this house. Because I ain't trying. He don't want to hear what I got to say right now. Notice, this is the same woman who, when he was eating at their house, she's sitting at his feet. Won't even help Martha. Martha comes out the kitchen and says, why don't you tell my old lazy sister to come help me? You know I'm trying to fix this meal. Same one is at his feet. And in that occasion, and Jesus said to Martha, don't worry about it. She's chosen the good part. She looked real spiritual down there listening, don't she? But how many of you have lived long enough to get past that spirituality? Because the drama has hit real thick. That's where he wants you to go. That's why you got to learn. You don't go to church because you feel great. You go to church when you're having the lousiest day you've had in a long time. You go to church when you don't get it at all. And you don't feel like singing. But what you're supposed to learn is we don't sing because we feel like it. We sing because he's worthy of our worship. So you got to learn to worship like Job. You can worship with tears streaming. You can worship with a head full of disillusionment. You can worship when you don't get it at all. You can worship when you have an attitude. Bring your attitude to church. Collectively, we want to usher in the presence of God. We want to get him to move.
Thanks so much for being here for today's message, inviting Jesus into everything. Before we leave, Pastor Paul has joined me from his studio. Pastor, here we are on the threshold of a new year. I can't believe 2023 is already just about here. So many of us take this time to set new goals and resolutions, and I know this is a time of reflection for you. What's on your heart for this new year personally and for the ministry?
Well, I'm glad you asked about that. I want to take some time this year and say to my listeners worldwide what I said to my church a year ago, New Year's Eve, as we were getting ready to move into 2022. Here's what I stood up in my watch night service and said. I want all of you to ask and answer two questions. The first is, what would you like to see happen in the way of what you experience and what you accomplish this year? And I said to them, that'll help you focus in on your sort of short-term goals. The second question is, what do you envision yourself accomplishing or experiencing by the end of the decade? And of course, both questions have an asterisk if the Lord gives you that time and the ability to do it. And I said, that'll help us begin to set our long-term goals. And my church really embraced it, and people began to tell me, this is really helping me to focus on the goals in the various areas of my life. And around our church, we talk a lot about the 7 pillars of life. And the way I paint it for our church is, I say, think of your pillars as your spiritual life, your physical life, your emotional life, your family life, your relational life apart from your family, like friends and coworkers and what have you. The 6th is your mental/educational life, how you're growing mentally and in terms of what you learn. And then finally, your vocational life. So those are the ways I always encourage our people to think. And I want to ask all of our listeners to do the same thing. Since we're being blessed with 2023, let's not waste that time. Let's not just drag through life day after day without thinking, without praying, without planning. But let's say, Lord, if I'm blessed to see the end of this year and the end of this decade of the 2020s, here are the things I'm going to ask you to help me to do. And I think that really will help you set yourself and reset yourself so that you can accomplish some things that will bring glory to God and be a blessing to you and your family.
Thanks for those great words of wisdom, Pastor. I know for all of us at Destined for Victory, we want to reach even more people with the gospel in 2023 and beyond. To do that, we need to finish 2022 financially strong and ready to take on next year's ministry challenges. So when you send your best gift of $25 or more to Destined for Victory this month, we'll gladly send you by request Volume 1 of Pastor Paul Sheppard's brand new book, Wisdom That Is Caught, Not Taught. And here's some news about this new book, Wisdom That Is Caught, Not Taught. Volume 1 is for the first time available as a Kindle version or an audiobook narrated by Pastor Paul. So your choice, select the printed copy, Kindle version, or the audiobook as our thank you when you request it with your most generous gift of $25 or more today. Give securely at pastorpaul.net. That's pastorpaul.net. Or you can call us at 855-339-5500. That's 855-339-5500. You can also mail your gift to Destined for Victory, Post Office Box 1767, Fremont, California, 94538. And remember, all gifts postmarked by midnight tomorrow night are still tax deductible for 2022.
There's a scripture that says, as he was, so are we in this world. That means we're called to be Jesus for the people around us. So if they're going to hear from him, they got to hear from us. If they're going to see him, they got to see him through us. Look at what Jesus said. He said, you're the salt of the earth. You're the light of the world. That means we are called to influence this world for Christ.
And that's next time when Pastor Paul Sheppard kicks off a brand new year with his message, Living Salty. Until then, enjoy the New Year's weekend. And remember, he who began a good work in you will bring it to completion. In Christ, you are destined for victory.